We are live. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're joining us from. Today, I have a really interesting topic and a very special guest. I'll let David introduce himself in a second, but we're going to talk about cyber insurance and more around the brokers. Actually, like how do you choose a broker? How do you know if what they're offering you is the right thing, and so on. We have the perfect guest to talk about this. I'll let David introduce himself and you'll see why he is the right person to talk about this today.
Thanks, Gabby.
David,
Really
yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, great to be on with you today. Like I said, I've been a big fan of the content that you put out and the company and the mission that you stand for
Thank you.
in terms of bringing greater security awareness to everyone, wherever they may be. So big fan, certainly. My name is David Darajotis. I'm the president of brokerage with wholesale broker Flow Specialty. We're a next generation wholesaler. We meet our clients where they are. We're not pushing portals. We're not pushing logins. We utilize the benefits of technology through making it as simple as possible to work with us. So we accept business. We focus on professional liability, cyber risk, technology risk, directors and officers, management liability. But you work through us the way you would work with any other wholesale broker, Gabby. You submit it to us. We use the tech on our side. We don't put any burden on the clients that we work with. And we use AI tools behind us to power our ability to give greater insight, policy form comparisons, and rich information on every proposal that we provide to our clients.
Cool. So you know what? Let's start with a question regarding I'm just high level. There's all type of terms like carrier, cyber insurance, broker, wholesaler. I don't like high level. We don't have to go like first of all, what do I need? Who do I need to approach? And what are those different players even mean?
Yeah, it can be a confusing chain that takes place within the insurance placement process. So when you look at the overall value chain of securing insurance, whatever it may be, especially specialty insurance, you have a buyer and they'll typically be represented by an independent insurance agent. The independent insurance agent can either go directly to an insurance carrier to place that business, or sometimes they need to access a wholesale broker. And that's the space that Flow Specialty sits in. A wholesale broker provides additional market access and capacity, meaning access to insurance products. Some insurance carriers will only work with wholesale brokers. So our organization is able to open up a new untapped area of capacity and access to very specialized insurance products. And a wholesale broker should also be offering a deep level of expertise, because a wholesale broker needs to do more than just be that pathway to an insurance carrier. They should be providing white glove service, a consultative approach, and offering expertise in terms of guiding the insurance process.
Okay. So if I need cyber insurance for whatever reason, whether I was required to do so by one of my customers or partners, or whether by regulation, whatever it is, do I just go to my broker? Like I already have a business broker, a home insurance broker. Is that the same person I go to ask for this, or should I go to someone else? Or what's the advantage of doing anything different than that?
Yeah, it starts with the retail insurance agent. You want to make sure that you're working with a retail insurance agent. You as the business owner, as the CEO, you want to make sure that the independent retailer that you're going to either has direct access to specialty carriers that are going to place the insurance coverage for you, or that they have access to the appropriate wholesale broker so that they can be guided through the process.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, whether it's the independent agent that's securing coverage for you, or it's the wholesale broker kind of behind the scenes, you want to make sure that that independent agent has access to all of the resources, all of the carriers, all of the coverage that are going to meet your needs from a pricing and coverage standpoint.
But how do I know if they know if they so I know my broker, the actual person. I don't even know the name of the company sometimes. I know the person that is sending me an email or calling me once a year to renew my retail insurance. So I call him and say, "Hey, Steve, do you have cyber insurance? Do you also?" That's how it works, or do I need to search online for someone else?
Yeah, I mean, if they haven't brought up the subject of securing cyber insurance for you in the past, I think for me, that would probably be a little bit of a red flag. It's either the agent that's working for you on behalf of the agency doesn't specialize in that, or the agency as a whole doesn't focus on that. So if they haven't brought it up to you, that would be a little bit of a red flag for me. But certainly if it's somebody that you've trusted and has taken good care of you in other areas that you've needed to secure coverage, asking them how proficient they are in cyber insurance, asking them, do they have the ability to get to the necessary markets that will provide you what you need from a business standpoint. So I think having that conversation with them first, if they've taken good care of you, is certainly important. And then from there, if it's not their sweet spot, if it's not something that they can help with, either asking them to refer you to somebody else or the trusted internet to look online for brokers that specialize in cyber insurance.
Yeah. And there is a comment here. Somebody said they should be calling you on a regular, not once a year, which I totally agree. And the reason they didn't bring up cyber insurance, if they've never brought up cyber insurance, probably means they don't know enough about your business.
Yeah.
And if they don't know enough about your business, maybe they are not the best. So I think there's sort of a difference between specialty insurance than the regular insurance we buy. But so if I ask them, hey, can you refer me to someone? Do they have to, or will they be just look around, shop around? How does it go? Should I do my own research?
They certainly, you run the opportunity, or you run the chance of them kind of scrambling if they don't have that Rolodex, if they don't have those key contacts where they can refer people that they trust. If they want to be able to truly take care of you, it can't just be them going on and doing a quick Google search or them kind of brushing you off. I would really hope that they wouldn't do that. So if they have somebody quickly that they can think of, that they partner with, that they're able to hand off, that's great. Then it's somebody that they can trust, somebody that they've worked with in the past. If not, then yeah, you're going to have to do either a little bit of digging on your own, or I think even utilizing the network that you have as well. I don't think it's a bad thing to be able to reach out on LinkedIn, for example, to look to your network. Who would you recommend? I need to secure cyber insurance. Are there any contacts that you would recommend that can help me with this process? I know that more often than not, you're going to have all sorts of great recommendations come through that will be able to allow you to interview those brokers and figure out if they're right for you. And again, if it's not going to be that path, then just jumping online and looking for brokers, retail brokers in your area that specialize in this shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah. So before we go into the insurance, what does the insurance need to include? So I talked to my broker. I myself may not be aware too much about cyber. Like I've been asked to do that, I've been tasked, I've been tasked to do this. So first of all, who within the company should be looking for that broker? And once you talk to that broker, how do you know if they're the right broker for you?
Yeah,
because both of you don't know enough about cyber security. Like most small businesses, they don't have so much information about it.
That's exactly it. You don't know what you don't know. And that's an issue, certainly. So it really depends on the structure of the business. A lot of times, if it's going to be a smaller organization, maybe it's the CEO or the president that's also handling, securing all of the insurance. Certainly larger firms have risk management professionals and risk management departments where they're the ones that are handling it. If it's a first-time purchase for you and you're very hands-on, I don't think there's anything wrong with being involved in that process yourself to make sure that it's done appropriately. It's done to your liking and to your standard. I think that's important because I'll tell you, there have been countless times where cyber insurance has been purchased. It was the wrong policy, the wrong coverage, or it was a little tiny sublimit. It wasn't what the client thought they were getting. And there's nothing worse than paying for insurance. And then when you need it the most, when there's a claim, you get that denial or it's not providing what you thought it was going to provide. So making sure that it meets your needs and it's doing the things, ask questions. You can't be afraid to ask questions. You can never ask too many.
Yeah. So just to add to that, not specifically insurance, but, if you're going to work with an MSP or anything, people say, I don't know enough. And I say, the way to educate yourself is set up a meetings with several of them.
Yeah.
Because what you can do when you go to the next one, you can say, but David said 1, 2, 3, and then you start to learn. And I think it's really important because if you're going to pay this money anyways, and it doesn't take long, right? It's like a half an hour conversation. So you're spending like an hour and a half interviewing 3 brokers. And once you do that, you started to get a very good feel to who knows better in that space.
100%. I mean, we don't hesitate to get multiple bids if we're having construction done.
Yeah.
If you're having a home renovation project, you're likely not going to go, maybe sometimes, but you're likely not going to go with the first bid that comes in. You want to be able to set up time with the contractor, with the construction company, figure out who is doing the best job, who do you feel most comfortable with, and who can give you the best value, the best price for the services that they're offering. It should be no different for insurance. We have RFPs, it's a request for proposal, and you can meet with a couple of different companies, and you'll know fairly quickly whether it's an organization or an individual that really knows what they're talking about. What's their track record in the cyber insurance space? How much business do they write, on an annualized basis? Are they familiar with the carriers, the marketplace? They have an understanding of the threat landscape overall. These are all questions that somebody can ask, and you'll know fast whether that organization knows what they're doing.
Okay, so I have a few more questions regarding this. So let's go on the frictionless path. I call my broker. I say, hey, do you guys do? I need cyber insurance. I was asked, yeah, sure. I'll send you a quote, and then they send me maybe a short questionnaire. I send it back to them. They send me a quote. It's the same carrier that I had before. All looks great. Should I just sign it and continue on? Or how do I know that I got what I wanted? Where it was a frictionless experience. It was great. It's added to the same, when I renew my quote, when I renew my license every year, my insurance, it will be just packaged in. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing, or does it matter if should I use a different carrier? I have so many questions, but I'll stop you for a second.
The cyber insurance market is very fascinating because it's always in flux. We went through a very hard market a few years ago, meaning there were fewer writers within the space and they were charging more for the business that they were insuring. The carriers asked a lot more questions than they had prior to 2020, prior to that year. Now we're in a softer market. Again, there's a lot of players in the space, a lot of carriers and managing general agencies, program managers. They all are doing something a little bit different. Some have all sorts of resources built in. They have cybersecurity services and training as part of their overall offering. Gabby, you very much know about that, being affiliated with many carriers. So if you're a first-time buyer and you're new to this, I think it's important to know that your broker is doing their due diligence. I think it's important to get a few different offers that you can compare and contrast. Because I'll tell you, you get one application in for the same business, you send it to 3 different carriers, you're getting 3 different offerings. Right. They can be all over the place in terms of the price that they're charging, and they can be all over the place in terms of the coverage that they're getting. So even though it's frictionless, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the best. You want to make sure that you are getting multiple options provided, and then working with your broker, you can make the decision that's best for your business.
So give me some, for the audience, give me some qualification questions that I can ask my broker. I just give an example that I know, what are your pre-services? What's included beyond the coverage? Because coverage and price, I get it. Okay. Yeah. But what else? So what are the type of things that I should ask to see, first of all, if my broker is the right one? And I want to see, when I look at the different quotes, if those things are included, because some of them don't have any services beyond the, coverage that I asked for.
Yeah. I think a big question is, how many different carriers do you have access to? And this can either be on a direct basis, or it could be through their wholesale broking partner. That opens up a whole new channel of carriers, because if you have a retailer or a wholesaler for that matter, that has access to 3 different markets, 3 markets in total, and they know those 3 markets, that is not the world of cyber insurance. That's a little bubble that they may exist in. So there's a lot bigger world that's outside of those handful of carriers that are in this space, as you mentioned, that are offering all sorts of cybersecurity services, training, all sorts of help, making sure that the organization is more secure upfront. Some carriers are even doing the security themselves. So if you're a smaller business that may not necessarily have the resources, you can get MFA, you can get backups, you can get access to a SOC, all through the insurance carrier that you're buying your coverage from. So I think asking them, how large of a world do you operate in as it relates to insurance? How many different carriers do you work with? And it's okay if it's through the wholesale broker. That's fine. The wholesale broker should be there providing value. They should be providing access, and they should be providing, expertise to help guide the process. I think that's a very important question. And just how much do you understand? How well are you versed in the cybersecurity, landscape? Do you know what the threats are? Do you know what's important to my business? What things should I be looking at? I would, kind of turn the tables a little bit and ask them, knowing what you know about my business, what should I be considering, or what should I be concerned about? What type of coverage should I be considering when looking at cyber insurance? And if they can answer those questions and you compare it against a couple of different conversations that you have, that will give you an idea of what makes sense for you.
I love that question when you ask them, tell me what, what I need to know, because that shows how much they actually, asking questions is hard. People think that's easy. So if they ask the right questions, then okay, they have experience. But here is something else that I'm hearing. We often think about like price and coverage, but you mentioned training. For example, Wiser were, working with many carriers and they're actually offering it as part of the bundle. And I know that MFA and some other products. So what I'm hearing is that you potentially may go with the more pricey option in many cases, because when you look at what you're getting, which is what you need anyways to be insured, and two, to meet regulations that you're anyways required to meet, when you look at the full package, the pricier insurance will offset a lot of the other products so you can rip and replace some other product that you had by just getting it for free from your broker, from your carrier. So knowing that in advance, knowing the whole, like you say, the whole scope of what you're getting is really important. If you're just looking at the price and coverage, you're actually paying more. You think you're paying less, but you didn't know that you are basically not getting all the benefits that you actually need anyways, whether you want it or not.
That's exactly it. Cyber insurance is very unique, being that it is more proactive than insurance traditionally is. Insurance is reactive. You have a loss, you tender a claim, and there's some type of financial reimbursement that takes place. That's the whole nature of insurance. Cyber insurance is unique in that before there's a loss, before there's a claim, your policy can actually work for you. Your policy can give you a stronger security posture. Your policy can train your employees. Your policy can help you with compliance. Do you have a privacy notice in place? Do you have a written information security plan in place? Do you have incident response? Cyber insurance and all of the affiliated resources that come with policies in 2024 can help your business be more resilient, can help with training, and it can work for you before there's a claim.
Yeah. So you know what? It also sounds like the smaller carrier, the medium carriers, probably that need to be more competitive, probably offer sometimes more services than the bigger ones that just provide a frictionless experience. And they're like, hey, we can give you the best price and that's it. So again, I'm just telling this to the audience. Don't always go to the bigger ones. Not that they're not good. They just may work with, their advantages that, you're already working with them and it's a frictionless experience, but you may be just, leaving money on the table in this case. So another question, and by the way, I'm not even selling cyber insurance, right? Like this is sort of from my experience.
Yeah.
So how do they know what my risk? Two questions. How do they know what the risk is? Because I want to know that they price me correctly, because I don't want them to come back later and say, oh, you didn't tell us this. That's one thing. And are they going to do this every year, or they're just going to quote me more even? Hey, the risk has went up. This year it's more pricey. Can I do anything if I improve? Will I get better prices year over year, or will the prices go up? And how do they know even what my risk is?
What's interesting, Gabby, is that the cyber insurance marketplace had really previously taken a knock for their inability to assess risk. And carriers, and it's what led to the hard insurance market in 2020, because very little information would be collected to truly assess the security posture and the risk of a business. But carriers were throwing limits out, they were throwing pricing out without really understanding what they were taking on the books. So I think some of that has certainly changed. There's only so much information you can collect through a paper application, asking basic, compliance and risk questions. Some of the, I think, newer MGAs and insurtechs that have come into the space have figured out we have to do a little bit more than just asking questions on an app. They'll do scans. They're very topical, but they'll look for the type of software that you're using. They'll look for outdate or any type of outdated software. Where do patches need to be applied? They'll look for compromised credentials on the dark web, because we've seen time and time again through a variety of claims, unauthorized access happened because a email address and a password was found online that an employee was using at some third-party site, but they were also using the same exact things to log into the systems. So there are things that companies are doing now to better assess the security posture so that they can price it correctly. And the more an organization does to improve their security posture in terms of training, having strong management around the vendors that they're using, their supply chain, making sure that they're doing backups, all of the things that you see talked about these days. The more of those things that you do, the better pricing and the better coverage you'll be able to secure each year.
So if somebody's asking me a lot of questions and it's adding friction, I want to get the quote and they're starting to ask me and they want to call me and they want to talk to me, is that good or bad? Because on the one hand, it sounds like they know what they're doing. On the other hand, should I be afraid because I don't have all those tools and maybe they will price me very high? Should I go with that carrier that is not asking a lot and I can just get a price and get on with it?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because if you just go with the price and get on with it without providing much information, you may be overpaying. You might be. So I think it's important, if you're working with a broker that's asking you questions, it sounds like they either know what they're doing or they're working with somebody who knows what they're doing. So I certainly think it's important to be as transparent as you can. Share where you're strong. Answer the questions, with regard to your security posture, because if there are gaps and there are weak spots, they may be able to help you plug those holes. They may be able to match you up with a cyber insurance writer that will provide those services for you and make you a better risk, a better insured in the long run. So I think it's important to always be transparent, always be honest and open, because again, it can round out your overall organization. If you don't do employee security awareness training and it's important, you can have your cyber insurer provide that for you if the right cyber insurance is provided for you. So again, it's making sure that the right market access is being provided, the right options are being presented to you. But I think it's always important to be very open and honest, because it will make you a better risk going forward.
And I would also, a tip for the audience, like take advantage of that, because you're being given tools. And I've seen a lot of customers that are being given the tools by the provider and they're not using it. So like, don't just brush it off and say, okay, this is a checkbox. Like, if this is an opportunity, this is a forcing action. So use that forcing action to improve, because when the renewal comes, and that's sort of the follow-up question that I wanted to ask, if I demonstrate that I have become stronger, that I'm better equipped, that I've been using the tools, any chance that I'll get a discount?
Absolutely. I mean, we've secured discounts consistently for clients. I'm talking over the course of my career. When you have an insured that has been loyal to a carrier, they've improved their security posture over time, there's no reason they should have to pay an increase. And I understand the market is in flux, and you have some carriers that take a broad brush approach, and if they're not doing well in cyber insurance, the loss ratios are bad, then they just increase rates for everybody. If that's the case, then I think it's important to go out to the market, make sure that your broker is going out to the market and doing their due diligence, and they're able to provide something to you that more aligns with the risk that you are. If you've done all of these things, there's no reason you should be paying more in terms of the premiums for your cyber insurance. So again, that comes down to the understanding that your broker has. But I've seen it the other way too. I've seen significant claims take place. I've seen bad ransomware events. I've seen horrible social engineering events take place because the right procedures and protocols were not in place. And if that happens, you should certainly expect to pay a higher premium come renewal if a big loss is paid out.
So let's talk about payouts, claims. How do I know if this carrier is paying out claims? Because the worst thing for me is if something happens and I've had my insurance and they don't pay. And I think that's something that a lot of people are worried about. How do I know if this carrier or if this broker will be good with me in case of an incident?
Yeah, I think that, again, that's where the broker expertise can come into play. Knowing that you may have a cheap premium on the table, but asking a question, a follow-up about their ability to pay claims, their claim handling experience. Is it something that they do internally, or is it something that they farm out to a third-party administrator to do? Those are important questions to also ask of the provider of cyber insurance. So again, you want to make sure you're buying a piece of paper. You're buying a promise to take good care of you. You want to know that carrier is going to step up and they have a good reputation for paying claims. So I would add that as a follow-up question as well. What's the reputation that this company has for their ability to pay?
Are there any statistics on carriers where you can see sort of the ratio? Like, is it open? Is it public information where I can see they usually pay this amount or that amount? Like,
It's
any?
not publicly available. It's not easy. And
Okay,
a lot of times a broker will get a very bad taste in their mouth with a carrier because there'll be one incident that took place and then they will never go back to that carrier again, or that will be like the last resort option because they had a bad experience with them. I think cyber insurance as a whole got a little bit of a bad reputation. I think back to the 2017 NotPetya. We heard about all these claim denials that took place. It's important to understand the denials that took place were on the property insurance side. There were these big towers that were put together from Mondelez and FedEx, all of these huge companies. They had $100 million towers, and they tendered these cyber losses to their property coverage. And that's where that
gotcha.
battle came into play with the cyber war exclusion. You typically won't see the same type of fights. You won't see the same type of denials on the true cyber insurance side. But again, it's going to come down to, did you have the right coverage in place? Were there exclusions on there that you should have been made aware of? Because that's where you can get into issues.
So let's talk about those exclusions. What type of exclusion should I look for?
Yeah, cyber war is a big one right now. That's real big with the reinsurance marketplace. We're seeing carriers adding more clear cyber war exclusions to the policy. So that's something that I think is important to look at. There are carve-backs for terrorism. I think it's more important depending on the type of industry that you're in. I think if you're a public entity, if you're in water, if you're in any of the critical infrastructure, government, I think having the coverage for a war-related act is important. If you're a smaller retailer, you're a restaurant, maybe a small manufacturer, I think it's important, but it's less important. You have to know where to fight for specific coverage. There's another exclusionary wording that I think is important to ask for. Do you have a failure to maintain security standards exclusion? Okay. Because I've also seen losses or claims denied because the security posture of the organization was one thing when the underwriter evaluated the account, priced it, and bound it. And then during that renewal or during that policy period, they acquired another entity. And because of that acquisition, the security posture changed of the organization. And I've seen claims denied because when that entity that was acquired ended up with a loss, the carrier said, well, no, the security posture of the company that you bought was very different than what yours is. So I think asking, do you have a failure to maintain security exclusion on the policy is important as well.
And what if they will claim there was negligence on the customer side? They should have, I don't know, they should have enabled MFA and they didn't for that account. Happens. I'm not saying it should, but they added a user and they didn't enforce MFA for that user. That user got attacked, went through the VPN. Now it's a big mess. What do you do then?
Yeah, negligence usually isn't an issue when it comes to cyber insurance because you see all types of mistakes taking place. Like I said, I would argue that it's negligent to use a password that you're using for work to order lunch for the office through a third-party site. Those things happen. Yeah, and the policy wouldn't exclude a claim for that. And you can say negligence in all sorts of other areas. You were supposed to have a callback provision. You were supposed to have out-of-band authentication when that wire request came through, and you didn't do it. Could you say that's negligence? Maybe. So the policy is intended to cover those types of mistakes and errors that happen during the course of operating when you're overlooking a protocol. Now, it's different if you say you're doing those things on the application and you're not. Now you're talking about something different. You're talking about misrepresentation. That wouldn't be covered.
Gotcha. In terms of the things that, again, this is for people that are not very much aware about cyber insurance in general. We spoke about, you mentioned sort of like wire fraud, ransomware. Are all of those things I should expect? Any social engineering attack, all of those things are covered, or are there any particular segments within cyber insurance that are not covered?
Yeah, it's all.
Or insider threat, for example. Insider threat, somebody stole money from within the company.
Yeah, it's all over the place. And one carrier does it a certain way, carrier B does it another way. If you have a package policy, maybe it's very truncated limits that you're getting. So it comes down to having a clear understanding of what's being provided, what is offered, what's sublimited, what's not covered. Those are all questions you need to be asking, because there is no one size fits all. There are countless markets that are involved in this space that are providing some level of insurance, and they all vary all over the place.
Okay. A few more questions we have. We're almost on time, but I do have a few more questions.
Yeah.
So there are different vendors today, EDR vendors and others that are offering something that sounds like insurance. Like we're gonna give you, we're gonna basically
A
pay out
warranty.
the warranties. So how is that different? Because that's what their claim is. You're gonna get $1 million coverage in case you get hacked if you use our EDR.
Yeah. I mean, the warranty is very different than what a true broad cyber insurance policy is providing. It's important to look at the language. It always comes down to the details. What is this actually warranting? Do I get coverage if there's a data breach and I have to notify? And if I have to, if I'm sued and I have to pay a third party, maybe it's that very narrow coverage that the warranty is providing some level of reimbursement for. But what if there's a privacy violation? What if there's a regulatory violation or PCI with credit cards? Does the warranty address that? Probably not. What if I actually have to make a ransomware payment? Does it cover that? Maybe some of them do. Maybe many of them do not. Is it going to provide the call center services? Is it going to provide coverage for bricking to restore all of the hardware that I have? There's so many nuances, and there's so much involved in the coverage. Is it going to pay the $250,000 wire transfer that went out because we made a mistake and we didn't verify?
Yeah.
You need to look at what is being provided within that language and compare it to what a broad form policy in the cyber insurance market will yield.
Yeah. So I spoke with one vendor, and that vendor said, we're so good, we never had to pay any claim. And I was like, okay, to be honest, I want to tell you that doesn't sound good.
No.
The fact that you never had to pay a claim, to me, maybe it's true, maybe you're so good, but to me it sounds like you decided not to pay. You excluded different things. That's what it sounds like in the reality of the world we live in.
Yeah.
So and also some of them will be like, only if that machine had that EDR, or only if that machine was covered. And then you see, like, it's not broad enough, in my opinion, to be good enough to cover like a real good umbrella. That's in my opinion. I think it's better just to have a cyber insurance than trust the vendor. Let the vendors do what they're good at. That's
absolutely. I agree fully. Again, everybody knows there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing that you can apply. If you have this EDR system, if you're backing up your data every 10 minutes, it will never fail on you. Yeah. We all know that's not the case.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's foolproof.
Yeah. Last question. Do I need an MSP for this? So again, what do I do if I'm a small business? I want to buy this insurance. They're starting to ask questions. I don't really know the answer to all of these questions. I want to get my insurance. I'm a responsible businessman. What do I do? Can the cyber insurance company sort of like do some of the work for me? Do I need to match it with an MSP? Like, how do I do all of this?
Yeah, the beauty of cyber insurance is that the carriers have panels of all sorts of MSPs, MMSPs. They have all sorts of resources, incident response firms, attorneys that specialize in privacy law and cybersecurity law. So it's important to ask what resources do I have access to with this policy? What approved vendors are on the policy? What approved law firms are on the policy? What type of access to services do I have on the front end that won't cost me? All of these things can be provided to that small business to make life as easy for them as possible, to make them as secure, and to protect them so that when something occurs, they know that they have the right coverage, they have the right resources, and their business will be positioned to succeed and get through it.
I would say the carrier, if anything, would be happy because so many don't take the advantage that they want to provide. I've worked so many with carriers. Many of the specialty carriers are trying to offer more to the customer than the customers are willing to take. And I'm like, why? And because the carrier wants you to reduce the risk. They want you to talk to their people. They have some really, really great people that can provide so much value. Just call the carrier and say, hey, I need advice on anything cyber security related. Call them. They will they will match you, they will hook you up with someone. Just do this, take advantage of it,
Completely agree. It's in everybody's best interest. The carrier wants you to take advantage of
Yeah.
those resources because it brings your risk down. If you take the advantage of those risks, those services, your risk is going to come down. You're less likely to have a claim. You're going to have better premiums come renewal. You don't have the headache of dealing with a breach or a ransomware.
Yeah.
Or if it does happen, you'll be more efficient in the way that it's handled. So
Yeah.
everybody wins.
Okay, so last thing, you haven't spoken a lot about what you guys do. So take a few minutes because it sounds like a lot of those things you can help with, right?
We
So why
can.
don't you give just a quick information about how do you guys help with all of this?
You got it, Gabby. I mean, Flow specializes in cyber risk. So we do some things on the front end before we even work to place cyber insurance for our retail clients and partners. If you want us to run a scan to take a look at the digital footprint, we have a great partner that we do that. We'll provide a report through so that we can look at compromised email addresses, compromised passwords, financial information, whatever about the employees of that business could be out there. We'll do that scan so that you can assess and see where your vulnerabilities may be. Because if you can close some of those things down, it will make you more secure and prevent unauthorized access from occurring. We work with a wide array of cyber insurance markets. We understand the nuances of coverage. On every single proposal that we provide, we will always give very rich information, deep insight in terms of the pros, the cons, what the coverage is providing, where it may be deficient, and more importantly, or just as important probably, we provide full form coverage analysis. So if we're comparing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cyber insurance quotes, we'll do that side-by-side analysis and we'll give the pros and cons of every single one so that can be provided to our client so that they can take that back to the insured to make the best decision for their business.
So in short, just to make sure that people understand, you guys act like a broker, right?
We are a broker. We're a wholesale broker.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a wholesale broker. So if somebody needs a broker, or they work with an existing broker and they can say, hey, can you call David or Flow Specialty, work with them to help us fill in that gap. And you know how to reach out to the different carriers, do this analysis that you spoke about in order to choose correctly what's right for me as a customer. Correct?
That's exactly it, Gabby. We're an
I
extension.
just want to make sure that people understand that it's not like you're just doing risk assessment for customers. You're offering the right policy for them based on everything you learn about them.
That's exactly it. We're an extension of our retail clients, and we want to make them look as good as possible and provide them and arm them with all of the information for their clients.
Okay, great. So, David, if anybody wants to contact you, how do they do that?
David@flowspecialty.com.
Okay, cool. And we'll also leave a link, and we'll do a summarize after that and put it on our blog, and we'll include a link. So thank you very much. I've learned a lot. This was really interesting. And hopefully the people that are listening to us are now smarter on what to ask, because if you're getting a policy, just, there's so much value in it. Just do a little bit more, looking around and understanding what you're getting, and you can save a lot of money and a lot of headache in the future. And it's a great product to have, I think, in general, cyber insurance. So, and by the way, having cyber insurance doesn't take the risk away. So for all of you, it will pay for some of the damage. But if if you get hacked and if you're out of business, you're out of business. So please do your all your cybersecurity activities, everything you need to do to keep safe. Don't think that cyber insurance will protect you. They will pay for things, but they won't protect you.
That's right.
So that's in my opinion. Anyways, thank you very much, David, and for the audience. And until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Gabby.